Hello everyone, this is Susanna from Hold It Right There Sewing Patterns. Welcome back to my video tutorial series for the Meridian Sling. To make the Meridian Sling, please purchase the sewing pattern available on my website linked below. In this final video in the series, I will walk through the steps for making the gussets and binding the seams in double fold bias tape. Grab your pattern instructions and follow along with me now, beginning on page 9, step 43. Locate your double pull zipper. Just as you did with the zippers for the zipper pockets, measure and mark, and then cut where marked, and the double pull zipper needs to be a total of 16.5 inches. Baste over the zipper teeth at the left and the right zipper ends to prevent the zipper pulls from falling off the zipper teeth while sewing. With your double pull zipper cut to measure 16.5 inches total, we will next mark the center of the zipper on the zipper tape. Fold the zipper in half, matching short side to determine its center. Using a fabric pen, mark the zipper center above and below the zipper teeth on the right side of the zipper tape. You will now need both upper gusset K pieces. Measure and mark across the center from short side to short side. Next, we'll mark the center in the opposite direction. Fold in half, wrong sides together, matching the short side edges. Mark the right side center with a fabric pen where creased, drawing about a 1/2 inch line. This small center marking that we're now drawing will be used to center the zipper in the upper gusset. Divide the upper gusset K pieces in half now by cutting along the long center marking. Each segment now measures 2¼ inches by 16.5 inches. Repeat step 44 with the second upper gusset K piece, measuring and marking the centers and then dividing the gusset in half. We're going to start with the lining fabric or your fabric 2 upper gusset K pieces. Place the zipper right side up on the right side of the upper gusset K fabric 2 pieces. Match the center markings. Pin or clip together. Sew using an 1/8 inch seam allowance. You now need your fabric 1 or your exterior side of your upper gusset K pieces. Right sides together, place the upper gusset K exterior side or fabric 1 side on top of the zipper. Once again, match the markings. Pin or clip together. So the zipper is now sandwiched in between the 2 upper gusset K pieces. Sew using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, I've sewn half of the zipper to half of the upper gusset. So now what we want to do is press the upper gusset right sides out away from the zipper. Then top stitch 1/8 inch from the folded edge. Repeat steps 45 and 46 with the remaining fabric 1 and fabric 2 K pieces. And once you've finished your installing the zipper into the upper gusset, it will look like this. I've top stitched both ends. And now on step 47, we're going to trim the long raw edges so that the prepared upper gusset height measures 4 inches total. So the lower gusset is going to be 4 inches and the upper gusset needs to match it. As you can see in this video, I have centered the zipper so that I'm taking an equal amount off of both sides of the gusset. So after trimming, the total size of the upper gusset will be 4 inches by 16.5 inches. Baste around the outer edges of the upper gusset using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. I'm marking the center of the outer edges of the upper gusset just like I've done before throughout this video by matching the short sides, lining side or fabric 2 sides together, and then where creased is the center. So using my fabric pen, I'm going to mark that center on the outer edge of both sides of the upper gusset And this marking will be really helpful later when we're constructing the bag. We will match these center markings to the bag panel center markings. All right, we can set aside the upper gusset for now, and next you will need your lower gusset L pieces. First thing is to mark the centers on the long outside edges, just like you did for the upper gusset. Set aside the lower gusset fabric 2 or lining side for now, and we are going to place the lower gusset fabric 3, the exterior side, wrong side up. Center and glue the 3" by 6" ultra-firm stabilizer to the wrong side of the center of the lower gusset. To help me with centering the placement of the ultra-firm stabilizer, I've drawn center markings on both the wrong side of this lower gusset piece and on the stabilizer itself. Allow the glue to dry before moving on to the next step. Next, we're going to match exterior side to exterior side of the upper and the lower gusset along one 4" side. Pin or clip the 4" sides together, based using a 1/4" seam allowance. Next, pin or clip the right side of the lower gusset L, that's the fabric 2 lining side, to the fabric 2 lining side of the upper gusset. And this is along that same short side that we just sewed. The upper gusset is now sandwiched in between the 2 lower gusset pieces, and the exterior sides are facing each other and the lining sides are facing each other. Pin or clip together, and then sew now all these layers together along that same short side using a 1/2" seam allowance. Repeat step 50 to join the remaining 4" sides of the upper and lower gusset in this exact same way. This is what your gussets will look like after step 50. I've sewn the upper and lower gussets together at the short sides. Now what I need to do is turn the lower gusset with the right sides facing out. So I should see the exterior side of the lower gusset and the lining side of the lower gusset. Top stitch 1/8 inch below the seams joining the upper and lower gussets. Repeat on the opposite side, top stitching below the seam joining the upper and lower gusset. Using a 1/4" seam allowance, baste both raw edges of the lower gusset. Our gussets are completely prepared, and in the next steps we'll be joining them to the front and back panels. So locate those now and place them exterior side up. 5 inches below the top edges, use a fabric pen to mark the left and the right sides on both your front and back panels. We're now going to join the gusset to the exterior front panel. Right sides together, match the center markings on the exterior front with the exterior gusset. Pin or clip together. Match the center marking at the bottom of the bag exterior with the center marking on the lower gusset and pin or clip together. Then you will match the seams on the gusset to the markings on the side of the exterior front and pin or clip those together. Once I have those 4 anchor points matched up and pinned or clipped, then I go in and add some more clips along the sides and along the top and the bottom. One thing to note is that the curved corners will not meet, and these will not be sewn in the step. So it is actually correct if your gusset appears to be too small for your bag exterior panel in this step. Using a 3/8 inch seam allowance, we will now sew the top, the sides, and the bottom edges where we pin, just along these straight edges. We're not sewing the curves at all. Here's a view of what your bag will look like after step 53. I've sewn the straight top, bottom, and sides, and now I'm going to make scant 1/4 inch snips in the gusset to ease it around those 4 curved corners. Since our seam allowance is 3/8 of an inch, I want to make sure that those snips are 1/4 inch or less so that they won't show in the seam allowance. Now that I've made the snips in the gusset, after clipping the gusset, I can now pull the gusset over and clip it to the corner of the exterior front panel. And I'm going to do this on the 3 remaining corners, snipping the gusset and then easing the gusset over and clipping it to the bag panel. Here's what my bag and gusset look like now. I'm about ready to sew, but I wanted to mention a stiletto tool. This is optional on your supply list, but the way it works is that as you're sewing, you can use your stiletto tool to grip the fabric and nudge it over as you're sewing to keep the gusset even with the edge of the bag panel. If you don't have a stiletto tool, a seam ripper can also do the same function. Just be careful though, because a seam ripper can puncture or damage your fabric. So if it's overly sharp, I wouldn't use it for this purpose. I've sped up this segment of the video just to show you how I'm using the stiletto tool to guide the fabric as I'm sewing around the gusset. We're now going to repeat steps 53 and 54 with the exterior back panel and the remaining side of the gusset. Be sure that you unzip the zipper in the upper gusset when you're attaching the panel to the opposite side of the gusset. If you do not unzip the zipper here, there will be no way to turn your bag. So unzip it, then pin or clip your gusset to your bag panel, and then sew it just like you did in steps 53 and 54. My front and back bag panels are now sewn to the gusset, and I'm ready to bind the seams. We're going to keep our bag with the lining side facing out for the next steps. You will now need your double fold 1/2 inch bias tape. Unfold the bias tape and then fold over one short end of the bias tape about 3/4 of an inch. Place the raw edge of the bias tape along the raw edge of the gusset, and I like to begin along a straight edge of the gusset, and I try to avoid the somewhat bulky seam where the gusset is joined. Pin or clip the bias tape along the entire raw edge of the gusset. The great thing about the bias tape is that it has a little bit of give since it's cut on the bias, and it will ease nicely around those corner curves of your bag. Binding the raw edges in the bias tape gives a really nice finish to your bag. It also gives a little bit of added structure to your bag as well. I'm almost done clipping the bias tape to the outer edge of my bag, and when I reach the starting point where I began, I'm going to overlap the bias tape about 1.5 inches and cut the bias tape there. And so you could see as I'm clipping it, I'm going to overlap that layer of bias tape on top of my starting point. Sew using a scant 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm almost done sewing the bias tape in this segment of the video, and I just want to show you how I overlap it. Wrap the bias tape over top of the raw edge of the gusset, and then turn the bias tape with the raw edge under. So I'm folding the bias tape the way it was originally folded. So as I'm wrapping the bias tape up and over the seam will be encased entirely in the bias tape. And then I will clip the bias tape in place. I'm ready now to sew the remaining side of the bias tape to the bag panel 1/8 inch from the folded edge. This is another helpful spot to use your stiletto tool just to guide the bias tape as you're sewing. Okay, the seams are completely encased or bound in the bias tape on one side of my bag. And now we will repeat steps 55 through 57 with the remaining side of the gusset, wrapping that side in bias tape just as we did the opposite side. All right, at this point, both of my sides of my bag are bound in bias tape, and we're on the very last step of this pattern. Turn the Meridian Sling right side out through the open zipper in the upper gusset, and as you're turning the bag right side out, gently push out the curved corners. Connect the swivel hook on the webbing to the D-ring. You are completely finished. Congratulations! I hope you've enjoyed this sewing pattern and making your Meridian Sling along with me in these tutorial videos. And if so, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Happy sewing!